Hello and welcome back to Authentic and Unapologetic Conversations with Latrice. I'm Latrice Torres, your host. I am so excited today. I've been running around. About 10 minutes ago, I lost my glasses. It was like, what's going on? But I'm happy to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you are calling or are joining us from. I'm really happy for you all to be here, and I have a really great show for you today. This is a conversation, so feel free to ask questions, share your thoughts and insights. We're going to dialogue together. And yes, it is going to be a really good show because today I have the joy of talking to someone whose work sits right at the intersection of purpose, storytelling, and power. I have Miss Elona Washington. Before I bring Elona to the stage, let me go over all the ways this woman is in one word. Excellent. So let me get my notes up here because I got to read this and I want to make sure I get everything right. So Elona is the Chief Publishing Officer and founder of The Author's Journey. It's an award-winning independent publishing company that's home to the Triumph in the Trenches anthology series. It's a collection that's become both a movement and a mirror for Black professionals. Her catalog includes award-winning and best-selling works that center healing and authenticity, and her insights have been featured in everything from Thrive Global to HuffPost. She's a proud Howard grad, HU, and a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. And she's on a personal mission, which I found this to be really interesting, to visit every NFL stadium and every Black-owned bookstore she can find, which tells you everything you need to know about her mix of purpose and play. I love that. So without any further ado, let's welcome Elona to the stage. Hello, Miss Elona.
Hi, thank you for having me, Latrice.
Thank you for agreeing to be here and do this with me. We have some great conversations, and I'm excited for everybody to be a part of those conversations today. So, yeah.
Girl, look, it's on LinkedIn, so we're gonna have to use that code switch in a bit.
Yeah, I'll do that. You can try that. I don't have that ability anymore. Part of what we're going to talk about is how we, pivot out of corporate. And one of those things that come along with doing that is turning off the code switch.
I don't have it
anymore. So we here, like everybody who knows me, I'm a West Side Rider. I'm from Compton, California. I'm going to keep it 1000% all the time. And this show is called Authentic and Unapologetic, and that's what we're going to do. So here we are. So I'm gonna steal one of those terms. Bring your whole self. I never know what that means, but girl, here you can.
Note it so I can cuss.
Absolutely. So y'all been warned. Just hold on. Just hold on. So welcome everyone. Hello. There's so many people. Miss Lisa. Hold on. The Lisa Hurley is in the house. So I'm always excited to see my good sis here. Yeah, and we're gonna really get into it and talk about a lot of different things. But before we get into all of that, I did your bio and everything, but I really actually want to learn a little bit something about you. And I want everybody else to learn something about you as well. So my question for today is, what is your favorite movie of all time and why?
My favorite movie, and it's probably going to cause controversy in the chat, but my favorite movie is Love Jones, not Love and Basketball. Love Jones. Yeah. Latrice Tate, enough said.
Right. I don't think there's any controversy. Anybody got any controversy with that?
There's this big debate, Love Jones or Love and Basketball, and it feels like our entire generation is more Love and Basketball than Love Jones. But I'm like, Latrice Tate, have you seen how he's aging?
I mean, like fine wine, but yeah, I'm with you on that whole entire thing. And so I actually find, I find Love Jones to have just been way too long of a movie. They could have wrapped it up and way less. And I just thought I checked myself again recently on that. It's ironic we're having this to just see that I still think it was way too long of a movie, and I still think it was just way too long.
Yeah, I mean, they could have cut out some of the scenes. I really love like the whole friend dynamic with Bill Bellamy too. Like,
Yeah.
you had a love story and you had a male friend love triangle type thing going on. Come on now.
Right, exactly. So I'm with you on that one. There's no controversy. Both great movies. So I love that. So thank you for sharing that. So let's really get into it. The first thing I really want to just talk about is just who you are. So before, when we were just talking about what are we going to talk about and what questions I'm going to ask, I really just want to first give everybody a good sense of who you are. I read your bio, but I want you in your own words. Who are you? Who are you? Who have you been? Who are you now? How have you gotten here? And then we'll go from there.
That is always such a loaded question, especially if you're a mother, because you always lead with, I'm a mom. But, you know, my kids are grown, so I'm team F them kids. So I would say, look, you said authentic and unapologetic. Shoot.
Look,
so
I'm the first one to tell you I have a favorite kid, but we'll talk about that later. So go ahead.
I have a favorite boy and a favorite girl. I got 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and I keep it like that. Right. So honestly, though, I would say that I'm an overcomer. Like, if I'm a Me Too survivor and a survivor of a whole host of other things, but if I told y'all how early my abuse started, we'd be on here boohooing. So we're not going to get into that. But from someone who was abused so young and is 54 right now, like, you know how people say, who were you before the abuse? I have no freaking idea.
Right.
So you're looking at somebody who has known nothing but abuse, emotional abuse, very little physical abuse, but some of that too, right? But who has still managed to have joy, to grow, to mature, introspection, to raise some wonderful children. Just when you think about sharing your testimony, I feel like I am the testimony. I had a male friend when I was living in Charlotte, and he read, I was part of an anthology, and he read my chapter, and he said, how are you not on drugs? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. But
turning pain to power.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So despite everything that I've been through, I still want to help others. It didn't shape me. It didn't turn me into a cruel person. You know, you'll never hear me say I hate Black men or all Black men, because not all Black men abuse me, right? So I'm just not that type of person. I just want to spread love and joy and healing.
I love that. And that's what I get and hear from you at all times. So thank you for sharing that testimony. I appreciate that. Sorry, I have a little tear that came to my eye. Sometimes I get overwhelmed in some things. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. But it's I get emotional. You were saying, you were like, I don't know how I'm going to show up. And I'm like that too. I don't know how I'm going to show up. And then I just show up. And, I think that's what we, have to do. Right. Yeah. Lisa said, you have lived your life in the spirit of triumph, sis. That is true. And that leads me to kind of my first question, to bring in triumph. And the reason why I'm tearing up is because I have been very emotional lately in terms of just that word triumph, as I've been going through this process with you to be a part of this next volume. That word has come back to me like over and over and over again, because that, I think, is a story of a lot of our lives, especially us who have survived being in these trenches. It has become something that it's almost like the word itself is symbolic of how we exist. So tell me, how did you get to this point of saying, I want to do specifically this project?
So The very first time I ever shared my story, it was in an anthology because I was afraid of what other people would think or how they would judge me if they knew my entire story. So I tested the waters in an anthology. But I've done more over the years. So I'm on LinkedIn and I'm watching all of these stories of all of these Black women, and they're coining phrases I'd never even heard of: psychological safety, racial gaslighting, racial battle fatigue, pet the threat by Dr. Keisha M. Thomas. And I had never heard those terms before. And when they were sharing their stories, I was like, oh, it's not me. As much as they try to make you think that you're the problem, even when you try to walk in there trying to be all nice and helpful and never want to cause a stir, but there's still this underlying tension or problem, and then they lay you off or they fire you. And then you're thinking like, what did I do wrong? Like, I cannot figure it out. So once I got a grasp that it wasn't me, it's their perception of me, it made me think the best way for other people like me, deer in headlights, who have no idea and who were raised to think that because of desegregation, we were accepted and welcome and we could thrive and do well and climb the corporate ladder, to take those rose-colored glasses off and see exactly what could be in store when you accept that job. The best way to do it is from an anthology. Because I could have written my book, thousands of people could buy it, but then I would say maybe 40% could be like, well, this doesn't apply to me. Her mom, her parents were Ivy League graduates. She didn't grow up in Compton. You know what I mean? So I found a collection of Black men and women who were from the inner city, who were suburban, who had Ivy League parents, who were the first generation to go to college. So there's no excuse. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. We're all going to be going through this.
Yeah, I love that. And, that reminded me of a moment, actually talking with Lisa Hurley now, probably about 3 years ago, as she was, starting to formulate the Great Exhale. And we were trying to land on like how to describe that, like, in which you just did like really, really beautifully, and landed on, instead of using the term that gets thrown around all the time, like-minded, like everything is about, being in your peers and being like-minded and everything like that. It was more about being like experienced. And that's what your anthology has done, where it's sharing all different types of stories that someone is going to relate to. Like you're going to be able to relate to something in there, right? I think the first one has like 20 something stories, 20, 21, 22 stories in it.
Well, I am doing the second edition of the first anthology. So where's that one?
Yeah,
so you guys get an idea what we're talking about. So this is volume 1. So it's going to have fewer stories, and I'm also adding a new author in there, Dr. Carrie. She is in 2 and 3, but her experience growing up in Mississippi and then having the culture shock of actually working in like the Northeast Massachusetts or something, and then coming back. Can you imagine? And then coming back to work in Mississippi. Yeah, I can't. I can't wait for her.
That's like moving to another planet.
Exactly. And so her stories and like her learning experience and everything that she went through in Mississippi and in Boston, I think is where she was. I was like, yeah, you need to be in the first one too. So the first volume is going to have about 14 stories, I think. And the second one has about 10. And this one has about 14 or 15. The third one.
Okay. Yeah, I have number 2 here. So we'll get through all of them by the time we get done with this. But there's number 2, which is just what got me is just how beautifully written every chapter is, in terms of the way everyone is just so freely sharing And I think that's the most beautiful thing about this particular anthology, that, I predict it's going to be much bigger along, and as time goes by than I think any of us really realize, because when have we gotten this type of insight and vulnerability just kind of given and putting out there for us? I'm not sure I know of this being done in this way. And I could be wrong. That I could be wrong, but I different, lots of different stories and different things like that. But I don't, but not like this. This is different.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I actually push my authors
Mm-hmm.
to go a step beyond. I
Mm-hmm.
have, one author, she was in the first one, she wrote her chapter to the second one, and I was like, no, sis, we're going to have a talk. And
Mm-hmm.
because she's very authentic, like she wears red hair, she has long nails, Dr. Mary. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, like deep down, I want to be like her. Like I had colored my hair red and I was like, oh my God, this is the perfect color for me. But I kind of like chickened out and I went back to my black hair, right? But she is
Yeah,
unapologetically
that's it.
authentic. Like
Look,
she
look,
is like
look, look.
real, right? And so
Right.
I was like, this chapter isn't like this red haired woman that I'm talking to. So we got to the root of how she became so authentic at such a young age. And it started with losing her dad at a young age and rebelling and then finding herself during college. And I'm like, can you imagine if, you know, we have found ourselves in college or just decided to become unapologetically authentic during college, how our world would be different? Like
Different.
that's amazing.
Yeah. That's the most exciting thing to me. Like, I wish I would have had something like this way back, like 20, 30 years ago, not to age myself, but I would have loved this. And I think that's what's so exciting. Like, I really would love to see this anthology be in colleges and universities and maybe even high schools as well, in terms of like getting that insight and getting these things before you're like just thrown into that and then navigate. And then all of a sudden you have all of these stories as well. My wish is that we don't have these stories anymore. That would be the greatest thing. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, people.
So we
So,
do, yep, we do have an author. You're going to be talking to them all in the next few weeks or so. But Shakira, she's a professor and she has the anthologies as an optional read. And the
mhm,
feedback she's getting from the students is exactly that. Like
mhm,
she was in another one about mental wellness. And then the students told her that they had more empathy for their parents and their
mhm.
aunties and stuff because they could see how there were some parallels, right? But with
Yeah.
the triumph thing, exactly that. So like you're coming, it's like you're putting on your armor and your shield because you're like, one thing they love to do is smile in your face, right? And tell you that
Yeah.
everything is fine and everything is perfect. And then
Mhm,
behind your back, an entirely different story.
mhm,
This
mhm.
series dismantles all of that. Like you're not gonna fall for the okey doke.
Right. Right. You can't. You just said something significant in there when you said that they could see and relate to their moms and aunts and and uncles and everything because of these stories, and not realizing, a lot of times young people forget that the older generation was once the young generation as well, and when, and that term been there, done that, like, is a real thing. Like, we're not just saying that. And this puts that into reality, and again, and with so many different authors contributing to that, I think that's almost like what validates it. Like, these books are like more, they're case studies, they're stories, they're like a whole lot wrapped up into one,
Yeah,
which, I just love that about this.
I wanted to remove the excuse, oh, that doesn't apply to me because I'm no, you're gonna find yourself in several of these stories. Like it's
Mhm.
guaranteed.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely guaranteed. There, you have these moments. I know I did, and where I'm reading it and I'm like, the Truman Show, like, how they how they know we did this, like, and then you stop to realize of how behavior has become so ingrained. Even when we started this particular show and started talking about code switching, even that type of behavior becoming something that is just so accepted that there are people who don't even realize that that is happening anymore. Like they don't even. I've said that term to some people in some settings, and it's the first they've heard that term, and I've had to explain that. And I'm like, there's no way that that's possible, but it is possible. So like putting these things down and having them, this is, again, it's a resource. And that's the beauty of this entire anthology. So I'm probably going to thank you for this anthology like 25 times throughout this whole thing. but thank you again for that, because it's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So across all three of the volumes, there are themes and lessons that I think stand out to me. But being the editor of this, what themes and lessons have really stood out to you?
There is no right answer. Mm-hmm. And no matter how nice and agreeable and how well you do your job, you're still going to encounter pushback. It's not you, it's not how you show up, it's their bias. When you know how that term we were talking about earlier, you bring your whole self to work, they bring their whole self to work too. So they had grandparents who were racist. They had parents who told them, oh, all Black people are dumb or they don't get no education. But here comes you, and you're, you have your bachelor's, your master's, you're getting your PhD, and their whole frame of self has been, I'm better than them because. But then here's this Black woman who comes in who is look better, who's more poised, who speaks well, and who's getting her PhD, and that just dismantles their self-worth. And so instead of checking themselves and doing their inner work, they take it out on you. And there's nothing that we can do about how they react to us.
Right, exactly. And it's I forgive the audience, forgive me if you've heard this story before, but I think the first time that I realized that was happening was so blatant. Usually there's like, the microaggressions. I hate that word too, but it typically they're very passive about it. But in this particular case, we were told, this was the instruction, that we were going to have a leadership team meeting and to bring your strategy for the next year. Now, what does that sound like to you? Like, you will bring a strategy, right? Like you will come prepared to talk about a strategy. That sounds like something you would prepare for. So I prepared, I had a whole slide deck, I had a whole thing, prepared to go through my strategy. I get there, I go through it. And of course, being the only sitting at the table, and it was a bunch of white women, and I had a white male boss. And one of the white women turned around to me and she said, and put her hand on my hand. I think this is the part that really messed me up. She actually put her hand on my head and said, my dear, I think you need to lower your output. And I was like, oh, you bold with this, like you're not even going to try to. And I was like, are you that fragile in this moment? Like, is that, how fragile do you have to be to do that? And luckily the boss was like, yeah, that's exactly what ain't gonna happen. Like, what you're going to do is you're going to get your shit together and you're going to come back and we're going to have this meeting again. But it just was, it was the moment, like I've always known it, but it was like just blatant, this is how sad we are. And I just couldn't believe that it happened so blatantly like that. And that's the thing, is just, yeah, right, Lisa, the caucasity. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Like, this so crazy. I want to put up this comment, And unfortunately, it's coming up LinkedIn user. I'm gonna say user. So whoever made this comment, please put your name in so we know who to give this credit to. But it says theories might give you understanding, but only authentic stories and true experiences will prepare you for life. We must teach from that perspective. My generation certainly was not prepared for this horrendous open season on Black women in corporate and the professional world in general. Absolutely. And that's what I mean by this. Like, that's how important this is because we're like, no, here's what it looks like. Be prepared. So thank you for this comment.
Yeah, that was a powerful statement. Thank you. And since we can speak freely and unapologetically here, I'm going to tell y'all my thoughts behind this. So volume one. Okay, thank you, Anita.
Thank you, Anta.
So volume one, it was kind of like me awakening and saying, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one. When I started recruiting for volume two, it was around June or July, and they announced that Kamala Harris was going to be on the ticket. I was like, oh, we're going to lose. So volume two was, I had a collection of authors who were able to give frameworks and solutions on what to do because I knew she was not going to win. It wasn't because I didn't want her to win. It's just I've been in this country 54 years.
America.
Yeah, right. I was raised, I grew up in Princeton. I went to church with Republicans. I went to school with Republican, teachers and kids of Republicans. I grew up in a family of Republicans. I just knew it wasn't going to happen. The hearing the hatred white men had when Hillary Clinton was running, like, be so for real. Kamala was not going to win. So I wanted to put together a collection of stories because we were going to face it. I did not think it was going to be at this extent, but I knew that they were going to be coming for us. And I wanted to put out a book that had tools and resources to help us succeed in the workplace. But then volume 3, I was like, well, and this is before all the layoffs happened. And I was like, well, a lot of people, myself included, leave corporate America because it's toxic. We start our own businesses, but then we end up working with the same people we left corporate. So I wanted volume 3 to be for everybody. So if you decide to leave your entrepreneurial journey, you still need these tools, right? And then there are authors who are actually going to help with resources and ideas and insights for if you want to leave. Thank you, Latrice, for participating and sharing your perspective in volume 3. So every single volume has a different theme or purpose, but you're going to find frameworks and references and really personal stories in every single one.
Yeah, definitely. I want to keep this show about you. I will be a contributing author to it, and I know that when my frame of mind in it was, again, we're in the trenches, and if we want to get out of these trenches, we need to develop some habits to get ourselves out, right? Because no one's going to throw us a lifeline. We have to throw it to ourselves. So, that definitely is a thought process. And that's the build of this anthology and what makes it so great.
I agree. And then I keep thinking in the back of my mind, our ancestors did it. We're here because our ancestors survived. Some lines have been gone, right? Because they just didn't survive for whatever reason. But we're here. Our ancestors survived somehow. And I always think of the book Black Fortunes by Shamari Wills. Yeah. And the stories of how, 4 or 5 Black Americans became millionaires during emancipation. So we have no excuse. When we complain about the algorithm, seriously, sis, like, come on,
Mhm.
right? Our
Right.
ancestors endured worse.
Mhm.
They couldn't get jobs. They made a way. They sold watermelon. They sold peanuts.
Mhm.
My great grandfather owned a tobacco warehouse, but
Mhm.
it was destroyed in a fire.
Mhm.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
land
Yeah.
that land is gone. They did it. They faced
Mhm.
worse obstacles, but they did it.
But they did it. Yeah. My son this week was in Tulsa. And I was like, hey, you're in Tulsa right now. Go soak that in. Like, get out in the streets and go soak that in, because that's our history, no matter how hard they try to erase it, which has happened often, but our ancestors have made sure that they put at least some things in place so that those stories, even if they're oral, are passed down. And it's important that we continue to make sure that they continue to exist, especially in this day and age. But you're right. We feel like there's these external forces that are working against us. But honestly, we don't have any excuse, because it ain't chains and whips. Like, period. It ain't, right? And it's not. Even though we have a lot of these other things that are just as bad in terms of systems and things that are in place that really do not help us at all, we still have the ability to help ourselves, and we owe it to our ancestors to do it.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
what a lot of people don't realize is the civil rights movement really took off once television became popular.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. King, he was a master marketer. And he
Mm-hmm.
said, get yourself, when he was in jail, wrote a letter, get in front of TV, talk to journalists, make sure they can see what's going on. We have
Mm-hmm.
social media, we got the ability to screen record live, we
Mm-hmm.
have security systems, we have so many advantages that they didn't have.
Right.
And now we have the ability to share our stories in a book so other people can learn. if there's
Mm-hmm.
if we had these same systems when Black Wall Street and Tulsa was thriving, don't you
Yeah.
think that they could have flown to Atlanta, Chicago, New Jersey and said, hey, we did it like this?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
what this anthology is about.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, again, thank you for the whole entire thing, and just this opportunity that I hope people take advantage of. I mean, I know I plan to yell it from rooftops and everything on this, and I really really feel like others will too. I pray every day that there's an amplification beyond what we even can conceive. So I'm hoping for Oprah to see it and be like, I say this all the time to Lisa, but we just need one really good person to be like, this is the thing, right? Because that's how it happens. Unfortunately, we can do all the marketing and everything that we want, but we really do need people who have these really large platforms to use them correctly and not incorrectly, like some of these people are out here doing. We really need, more Tamika Mallory's out in the world, right? We need some of those voices to help with amplifying these stories, because they're worth being told. Period. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And then, being in your community can be just as effective. Church has been a great like meeting spot for us. I
Mm-hmm.
saw a TikTok. There's a guy. Um, I can't remember the name of the website. I wish I could, but he wants to start using Black-owned businesses as meeting spots, Black-owned
Okay.
restaurants as meeting spots. Right. So this this whole community and this whole organizing, everyone says that we're resting. We're resting when it comes to the BS that they're doing, but we're getting our stuff together.
Right. Like I said, we resting on, yeah. Look, so the Iconic project, the 92,
Mm-hmm.
is soon to be released, and I can't wait for that. But Tara Jane Frank posted on TikTok yesterday, like a teaser for it. And it was so interesting. The very first comment on the TikTok, and this might have just been timing that I was just lucky enough to see this like play out. But the very first comment was somebody, of course, anonymous, didn't have a picture or anything like that. But if you go into the profile, you know what they are.
Right.
And basically, their comment is, you didn't say what this is about. Now, I tell everyone to go out and look at this trailer that has been put out for the 92. And if it's for you, it's crystal clear what this project is about.
Yeah.
And so it was just so ironic that the first comment was, you didn't say what this was about. So you know me, because I'm petty. I'm right on there and I'm like, if it's for you, it's clear. Right. And so like it just became like this back and forth, but overwhelmingly it was more, positive comments and things like that. But it's just always somebody just kind of have to go in there and just throw some salt in there for absolutely no reason.
Absolutely, yes. And I will tell you, when our books are on Goodreads, this people with no faces, no username, we'll just give it 1 star. We'll give it 2 stars. No comment as to why they do it. And it's just like something, that we're just going to have to endure. But those of us who know.
Right. And that's all that matters. Like, to your point, yeah, we resting on y'all, but we on ours for sure. And to quote the great Kendrick Lamar, the greats. Look, again, I'm from Compton, so the great Kendrick Lamar, they not like us. Like, it's just ridiculous. So yeah, Anta said, if you don't know what the 92 is about, it's because you ain't part of the 92, boo. Absolutely. That part. So it's just it's interesting, and the thing is, the way that Black women move. And actually, there was a comment I wanted to put up here because it was this one. This was probably Anta as well, because Anta be on it. It said, the beauty and magic of Black women always turning pain into power were the definition of triumph. And that is absolutely true. And the thing is that as much as Black women are the definition of triumph, we also are the definition of community and care. And I love that that's also underneath, because that's what I actually see underneath your anthology. You have on the back end, and I don't know if people will feel this on the front end, but on the back end, you've also created a community. So that's my next question to you. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but what is your hopes in terms of the contributing authors and what you want to see in the future and what you've created?
Honestly, I want all of my authors to thrive. Typically, when you write a nonfiction book, it's because you're a professional in some area or you care about some cause. And a lot of people write the book with the hopes that it expands their brand recognition, and then they can leverage it into speaking and into consulting and coaching and things like that. So I want to create a community where my authors can turn this book into a really good form of lead engagement, lead management. And I'm thinking of ways that I can support them because they trusted me with their story. They, trusted me with the publishing and the distribution. And I feel like, I know that every single author is an expertise in their area, and they're able to help so many people. And with the way things are going right now, if I can find a way to elevate their voice so more people can hear about who they are and what they excel in, then I would consider that even more success.
Yeah, definitely. I can attest to, every time we get on a call, you reiterate this to us. You're like this. I want you to be able to get leads out of this. I want you all to thrive. So I always take that very deeply when you say that. Which, by the way, is not a normal thing you typically hear from a typical editor, but that's a whole nother.
I'm hearing that. I'm hearing that a lot. And I think someone emailed me and she was like, we usually don't get this kind of support from a publisher. And I'm like, well, I'm also a marketer, right? But then I'm also a Black woman survivor of corporate toxicity. So, and then I can see the strategy. If you tell me what you do and what your chapter is about, I already see your sales funnel. I already see how you can take it from point A to point Z. But and I say this about myself too, sometimes we fall short because we're not doing what we're supposed to do. We make excuses for ourselves. We say, well, I can't have, 800,000 followers because I'm not a WNBA player. Ernest Krim was a history teacher. He got 800,000 followers and he got a book. Like, with social media, like there is have you seen these people that are influencers today? Like, come on, sis. My authors can run circles around these people.
So you're tapping into something that I feel like I've been saying for like the last 4 or 5 years, which is like essentially, how are we having these influencers who really don't know nothing about nothing, and yet they are managing to figure out how to do this like in the most scaled ways possible? I was like, so how powerful would it be if people like us who actually have these experiences, these knowledges, these credentials, like, what happens if we started to do that?
Yep. If we got out of our own way, stop talking to the voices in our head, and then just did it.
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, like I said, I thank you again for that community that you're building on the back end for us to be able to do that as well. And then it be an example for others. And I honestly pray that I see other anthologies and things like that come out of this as well. I love the ideal of like a Black owned business meetup app or something like that. Like, I love that ideal. Like anything that is community. My thought is community is the core of how we survive in this crazy ass country.
Yeah. So the reason behind the anthology was because I am by no stretch of an imagination an expert in this. I rely on y'all. I'm just a survivor of all this stuff y'all are writing about. I don't have the expertise to help or assist anyone. That's y'all. So I'm the catalyst. Like, I need to put y'all in front of potential clients so you guys can help them. I can't help them.
Well, I think you're selling yourself short a little bit.
I mean, if they want to write a book, I can help them with that.
Right. But that's the beauty in what you do, right? Like, it's like when movies are made, like we call it movie magic, but it's not magic. It's people with all different types of expertise on the back end making that happen. We see the actors and all the final results, but there is a shitload of people on the back end who make that happen. And like, that's you, right? You deserve every flower that there is to give, because without you wouldn't be able to do that. And like I said, you're not the typical editor, so that also plays a part in that as well. Is because you are like experienced and you understand the stories that we're telling and the advice that we're giving and the guidance that we're putting out there, because it's the advice and the guidance that you would have wanted to have going through this yourself.
Absolutely. I read these stories. I'm like, oh my gosh, now I understand, what that's about. And I've always, and this is from being a little Black girl in Princeton, New Jersey. I always thought that they weren't jealous or intimidated by us at all because they're white. This is their country, right? But once I've seen the stories, like, there's no other explanation. for how they move towards us. And once I started to understand that, because I used to be proud that my mom went to Princeton, and I used to have all these conversations, but they didn't have the back. A lot of them, the majority of them, didn't have the background I did. So
Right.
yeah, so I don't know. I just wish that they just did the work to focus on themselves to make their community better instead of, oh my gosh, talking about listening to Black people or how
Right.
they need to be in our space to heal. No, your issue is separate from our issues. Y'all need your own spaces and your own anthologies to unpack why you guys feel the way you do towards us.
Right. Focus on yourselves. Right. You and I are very aligned on that. Be like, look, we'll be fine. Just if y'all leave us alone, we'll be even better. So,
Exactly.
like, focus on yourself. You don't need to do that. I don't have to go sit there and figure out and share my pain with you. We could just skip all of that.
Yeah, we
So,
don't
yeah.
need pieces on how you think about Black people and what we're feeling. And like you got your grandmama and your granddaddy raising you
Right.
with some weird stuff. Unpack that on TikTok. Deal with
Right.
that.
Exactly. Do that. Yeah. Exactly. I forgot who was it? I was talking to somebody recently who was saying how, like how just culturally we all kind of live in our our worlds, right, and we understand our our perspective. But there was something interesting. They were like, I grew up and I never had a depression story that was passed down in the family, like the Great Depression. And they're like, there are full groups of Black people in America who do not have a depression story. The my family lost it all or gained it all, right? In the depression, like just literally do not have a story. And it was like, yeah, because there was some people who really just didn't even experience it. There was Black people in the South who were like, there's a depression. Like, wait, you mean you got to survive being broke? Well, we've been doing that. So like, what's the big deal, right? So like, yeah,
Like
it's just
the farmers today. The farmers today. How the
same
white
thing.
farmers are up in arms. And I'm just
Right.
like, this is how we've been living. Like, what are y'all complaining about?
Right. We've been rolling like this. We did not get the grants. We didn't have any of that. We've been making it work. So roll up
And
your sleeves,
yeah,
pull
and
yourself up by the bootstraps.
we're thriving. We didn't get those handouts y'all got.
Right. Exactly that. All right. So I always have a piece in here that's called Factor Cap. This is my shout out to Jasmine Crockett. She does this actually on the Senate floor, and I always find it to be hilarious. She's always like, "Okay, with this Factor Cap, just tell me you only get answer Factor Cap, right?" And so I built that into what I do in here. So let me get that together because I want to make sure that we run through that. But there's some good things that we can talk about in our last 12 minutes. So we're going to run through this edition of Fact or Cap. So the rules are very simple. I'll put up a statement and then you'll answer whether that is fact or cap. Cool?
Got it.
Cool. Let's do it. So Black women leave companies because they lack resilience.
Cap.
That's absolute cap. We didn't just talked about all of the different reasons, toxic cultures, microaggressions, burnout, all of those things, but it's not because we lack grit or resilience, which again, another word. I always call that the R word. I'm like, don't come at me with that because I don't even want to talk to you about you cannot talk to me about resilience. Stop it. So yeah, that's definitely cap. All right. 340,000 Black women and 193,000 Black men lost their jobs in the first half of 2025.
Fact.
Absolutely. And I want to pause here because this is such a significant number, and I don't think we're talking about it enough. Like, I think we keep saying the numbers, but what's underneath all of that? We have all the different things. We know there's federal jobs. We know there's DEI rollback, which actually, I'm not even sure DEI rollback is really a contributor to that because in my 22 years of experience in DEI, I'm usually the only person who's doing DEI. The rest of that whole crew is a bunch of everybody else that is in that. So I'm not even sure that really is a contributing factor. It could be in some spaces, but again, I don't know about that. Your thoughts?
N- no, I don't think it's because of DEI majority. I've seen white women who were in DEI spaces
Mhm.
shocked that they lost their job and they were DEI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen the white women, white men, Asian women. I've seen everything way more than I have actually seen black women and black men.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so I'm that one I'm not sure of, but I think for me this is going to be something that I'm going to talk about more and more and louder because this is ridiculous and it's way past the extent of action and I honestly think that the ripple effect of this is going to be greater than what we're imagining right now. So yeah, y'all can
What,
look
what
forward
do
to
you
that.
what do you think the effect is going to be?
So what we'll see if black women are, and let me come out of this, if black women are pivoting out of the workforce, where do they go?
We tend to start our own thing.
Yes, that's exactly what happens. I think the ripple effect, I think it's a positive one. If I didn't make it sound like that, I think it's a positive one. I think we're going to see like this just crazy boom in black women millionaires. I think that's what's going to happen. And it's going to happen almost like it's going to feel sudden. It's going to be a boom. Like I predict, like I really feel like I have slept and seen like the headline of, more black women millionaires created in like a 3-year span than the past, you know, 40, 50, 90 years. That's what I think is going to happen.
I love to see it. I don't have a prediction.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess I'm thinking more of not everyone is meant for entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
So those of us who are entrepreneurs, we need to get our ish together so we
Mm-hmm.
can employ these people. That's what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. And I think and that's why I think that's why that I'm making that bold prediction because I think that's what we're going to see because we know how to lift each other up. And I think we have had enough of not doing that we have gotten to the point because let me say I'll say be the first one to say some of my horrible bosses have been black women, right? But that's because they were trained to be that way. It's all they knew. And so they did. And then that scarcity mindset of I got to protect my space
Yep.
became a thing, right? So like that is a whole entire thing that I am hoping to see actually get quelled some. And we move past some of those types of things.
I know there are some good organizations, who we can partner with, but I don't know if this is more of a hope than a prediction, but I'm hoping for international support. Like
Mm.
Mexico, some of these African countries who are doing it well, who can invest in our business, we can expand there or something. Because what is really hurting us is we don't have a country or something when stuff is done to us. Like when the Italians were considered black and minority and they were being treated the same way we were, Italy was like, that's the last time you're going to treat our
Mm-hmm.
people like that, right? We don't have
You have
that,
it.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But if we can start building relationships with other
Mm-hmm.
countries, I know China invests heavily in HBCUs.
Mm-hmm.
But y'all didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that. So if we
Yeah.
just start building these relationships with these other countries, I think
Mm-hmm.
it could change the dynamics of our individual businesses and our ability to support the people who just are not meant to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah. No, I agree completely with that. Completely. And I think we're all aligned with I think you and I are aligned in our thinking on that in terms of like what needs to happen. Look, my marketing strategist is in Africa. You have your assistant's in Africa as well
Yeah,
too, right?
she's
Yeah,
Nigerian. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, mine is in Zimbabwe, and I know we probably have similar reasons on how that happened and why that happened. But I know for me, I look for BPOs, and I kept getting them telling me when I had the requirement that I really needed it to be a Black woman. I was literally told and shut out and be like, "Well, you can't make that requirement because that's discrimination," or blah blah blah. And I was just like, "This is just ridiculous."
But
So like,
and there
no,
are ways that we could say it without saying it like that. We could
without
make the
saying,
requirements as such that only a
Mhm.
Black woman can fulfill it. And I feel
Right,
like sometimes we get to, well, it's supposed to be like that. But if tables were reversed, we'd be upset. So
right.
there are ways you can say it, but I will say, and I did not realize this, that Triumph is global. There was a woman
Mhm.
from South Africa. She says she's been following Triumph, and she
Mhm.
invited me on her Instagram show, and I'm never on Instagram, but
Mm.
because she read the book and she's like, oh my gosh, we're going through that over here too. So it
Mhm.
isn't just an American thing. This is just how they operate.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And I look, our diaspora is so big that I feel like to your point, where because we are global, I mean, at the end of the day, people of color are the global majority, and we're a really big part of that. And so I think the potential is actually limitless. Natasha said, I will internalize racism play out. It ain't going nowhere. I don't think it's going anywhere. With all of that said, but again, when we are rolling and controlling some of our own things, we also have power and control over the systems that we put into place. So that means we have the ability to design them in the ways that work for us and not against us. I think that's the bottom line of that.
Yep.
All right, so we're coming up on time, so I want to make sure that I give you the floor and give you the platform. I want to bring up a couple of different things. So first, I want to just hear from you about what is next for Triumph, and then we'll talk about some other things after that. So what's next for Triumph?
Yes. So the third and final volume will be released February 10th, 2026. We're going to be doing a LinkedIn Live on that day. And what's next? Oh, I also created a journal
Yes.
based off of that. So they're blank pages, but the Harvard Business Review says the higher you go up, and even when you're an entrepreneur, the more important it is to have a journal. When I worked at my last job at a Big Five, I had a journal, and it helped me immensely because I was sandwiched between two very difficult people. Let's see what's next. Later in the spring, we may be planning a summit, but more details on that later. So for now, get your copies of volumes 1 and 2, pre-order volume 3. You can get a t-shirt on my site, journeyimprint.com, and you can get a journal as well.
Awesome, awesome. I love all the things. I like stuff. So wherever I can get stuff, so you can go to journeyimprint.com and all of the stuff is there. And you can go from there. And I think it's really, really, I love what you said about journaling. I'm a big proponent of journaling for so many different reasons. But more importantly, to just really capture in the moment. Like it's really, really important to capture in the moment and not by memory. So I love that you have a journal. So thank you for that as well. Let's end with some things about the author's journey. I want to make sure we talk about that as well. So let's tell everybody more about that.
Yes, so really quickly, I offer hybrid publishing and self-publishing services. I do a bit of ghostwriting as well, but every single Wednesday for 2025, I am hosting 2 webinars. So I have an afternoon and an evening webinar. It's called The Profitable Path to Publishing, where you learn how you can publish with less stress, more ease, and I'll walk you through all the different types of publishing. I have been in the publishing space for 9 years. I've done it all. I worked in traditional. I've helped people self-publish. I've helped people hybrid publish. And I was a ghostwriter, and I'm an editor. So I can give you all the tea on all the things.
Awesome. So if you want to follow up with Elona, make sure that you connect with her. I'm trying to put that up. Yep, you connect with her on LinkedIn. All of these links, everything will be in the comments and in the show notes. When this is over, Elona, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I feel like I can just keep talking to you forever and ever and ever. But so that means there's probably going to be a follow-up show. So we'll talk about that later. But definitely, as we go through this journey, we will be keeping everybody updated on what this looks like and how they can continue to engage with Triumph in the Trenches. So thank you so much for your time. At the end of the day, your work really reminds us that our stories, especially the ones that we try to bury beneath, professionalism and all that kind of stuff, are often the ones that really actually hold the most power. So as always, when I get ready to sign off here, I want everybody to keep leading, keep healing, and keep unlocking what is next for you. Thank you, Elona, again so much for your time today. And I look forward to continue to work with you and to see everybody in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Awesome. Have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. And we'll see you next month.